Hello and welcome to Invested in Advancing Renewables, a podcast by PIF and Reuters Plus. PIF is the investment engine that's driving economic transformation for Saudi Arabia and the world. I'm Kimberly Leonard, and in this episode, we're going to be looking at the rapidly evolving world of renewable energy and its global impact on sustainability. I'm joined by Marco Artschelli. He's the CEO of Aqua, a company in which PIF has a significant stake and a key global player in the renewable energy sector. Marco, thank you so much for joining us. It's such a pleasure having you here. I think we should begin really with what is Aqua and what does it do?
Aqua is the Saudi national champion for renewables. We are one of the largest players in the world for energy transition. We're the largest private desalination company in the world, and we're the first mover in green hydrogen and green molecule. Today we control 65 gigawatt of capacity, 8 million cubic meter per day of desalination. That's about 20 to 30% of the need in the 4 countries in the region here. And we are building 2 of the largest green hydrogen plants in the world. We are also listed on the stock exchange in Saudi Arabia with a market cap of $70 billion today, multiplied by 7 since the IPO. We developed the most competitive solutions, so the lowest cost, sustainable, renewable energy, water desalination. And because of that, we're now called into many other countries to bring our experience and expertise. I always joke that we're turning Saudi Arabia from the largest exporter of oil to the largest exporter of low carbon technology and expertise. Today we operate in 13 countries around the world. They span from Uzbekistan to South Africa, from Morocco to Indonesia.
And your mission statement is to deliver power and desalinated water at low cost.
Yes, reliably, affordably and sustainably.
And what is the relationship between PIF and Aqua?
PIF is a significant shareholder of Aqua, and we recognize the value of PIF. What I see here is this consistency in approach under the leadership of Vision 2030 and the guidelines of Vision 2030. PIF is a big enabler of that, and we are part of the PIF ecosystem, particularly for the renewables part.
Saudi Arabia is committed to net zero by 2060. PIF has pledged to be net zero by 2050 and has pledged to develop 70% of Saudi Arabia's renewable energy target by 2030. That's a 50% renewable mix by 2030. But if you're looking at all of that, how does Aqua fit into all of that?
Aqua is the strategic partner of PIF for delivering this 70% program, 70% of a program that is 20 gigawatt every year. So our stake that we're building is about 14 gigawatt per year.
And you're going to be able to do it?
Absolutely. So today we already have about 2 gigawatt, or actually more than 2 gigawatt in operation. Remind you that we started these only 4 or 5 years ago. 2 gigawatt is already in operation. 12 gigawatt under construction, and we just signed contracts for 5.5. So in total, we have almost 20 gigawatt already being deployed.
Do you think that we could say that the renewable energy sector in Saudi Arabia is being transformed?
Absolutely. So I would say the overall energy sector, not just renewables. Mm-hmm. This is going to be done by developing renewables for 50% of the capacity and converting all plants to modern gas-fired combined cycle for the other 50%.
You spoke of PIF as an enabler. So could you just explain a bit more how PIF is enabling Aqua to invest in projects that are fundamentally shifting the energy mix in Saudi Arabia?
It's at multiple levels. So I think that one level is by participating in our board, we get a very powerful brain power supporting us in all the decision, in the strategy, in looking at things and how to do things well. And we are very grateful of the candidates, the members of PIF who sit on our board. The second is really to be in the glue within all the ecosystem so that we can work well together. So of course, there's a supply chain, for instance, and we want to make sure that we have, for such a gigantic program, we have the ability to mobilize everything that we need when we need. Part of the scope of PIF is to attract investors to manufacture here. They just signed agreement recently for batteries, wind turbines, solar panels to manufacture in Saudi Arabia. By the way, that is part of the green shoring program. So these are some of the examples of the value that they bring.
And is it going to change the game if you have those elements manufactured here in Saudi Arabia?
Certainly by shrinking the supply chain, the distance, you reduce the risk because you manufacture here. I think it's a great opportunity, by the way, for all the manufacturers who choose to come to Saudi Arabia because, well, first, all the power generation will be green. What we are installing is green, so they can source low cost and low carbon power generation, which then makes their products also very appealing for export, for instance, to Europe, because with the carbon border adjustment mechanism, there will be taxes imposed on importers who don't produce using green electricity, green molecules. The second is, here in Saudi Arabia, the scale of the program. It's probably the largest decarbonization program that is going on in the world today, other than China. China, of course, because of its size, is so big. And the third is that you are along one of the major shipping routes in the world. So you will be able to produce for here and produce for export.
One of the things I think that people don't really understand is the breadth of what PIF is doing, the vastness of what it's doing and what it's already achieving. And I think Aqua Power is a real example of that, don't you think? I mean, in your 30 years in the industry, have you seen anything like what's happening here?
Nothing comparable, honestly. I read Vision 2030, I fell in love. I said, this is such a wonderful program. And then I came here for a weekend with my wife and we saw everything that is happening. And we said, this is the place to be for the next decade at least, because it's a transformation, economical, cultural, social, with no precedent. In our business, really, to be able to transform and be part of this story is something that has no parallel anywhere else. So I think that what they're doing is they're also stimulating a lot private enterprise in Saudi Arabia, which is one of the goals of Vision 2030.
And are you working with any other PIF entities?
We're working with Badil, which is the investment company of PIF, who's the partner on our projects. We're working, of course, with the investee companies in the supply chain. We're working with the PIF company, ESC, who is doing green hydrogen. We're working with the regional voluntary market of PIF for carbon credit that they're setting up. So at multiple levels, yes, we are.
And Aqua Power, of course, as you were saying, it doesn't just operate in Saudi Arabia, does it? It has dozens of projects in, 13 countries, you said?
Yes. So first we expanded by participating in tenders in some of these countries. And then increasingly what we see today is that the government, after seeing the wealth of skills and the results, we achieved the lowest cost of solar PV in the world in Saudi Arabia. We achieved the lowest cost of water desalination in Saudi Arabia. And because we're building the first green hydrogen plant here in Saudi Arabia, by definition is the lowest cost, they're now calling us to say, can you come and help us lead the energy transition in our countries?
There's so much talk about Aqua Power in Saudi Arabia and green hydrogen, but what is green hydrogen?
Normally, hydrogen today is produced, it's called gray hydrogen, by basically undoing the molecule of methane. Methane is a formula that is carbon and hydrogen. Another way to produce it is through electrolysis. So basically what you do is instead of using the methane, you use water. So the water is hydrogen and oxygen, so you separate it using electricity. The hydrogen you use, the oxygen you can either use or release in the atmosphere. The electricity that we use to produce comes from sun and wind. And so that makes it green.
What green hydrogen facilities does Aqua Power have?
So we are participating in the Neon Green Hydrogen project as a $8.5 billion investment, which is scheduled to start production around the end of 2026. And then we have a smaller project in Uzbekistan, together with the local fertilizer company and petrochemical company. And
the Neon Green Hydrogen project, how does it compare to what's happening elsewhere around the world when it comes to green hydrogen? So I give you these examples. They just launched the largest green hydrogen plant in Norway,
around 20 megawatt. They launched the largest in the US, around 20 megawatt. This plant here is around 2,000 megawatt. So it's 100 times the biggest plant that they have launched in other continents.
There was recent research that shows it could be exported from Saudi Arabia to Europe, renewable energy. It's almost poetic, isn't it? Yeah. That you have the world's biggest oil exporter now with the potential to be a huge renewable energy exporter to Europe.
Yes, that's the power of the vision. So if you think about a country that is endowed with such a wealth of oil, you would say, well, you want to, sell it and continue to produce it as much as you can. Here it came, His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince, with this vision to say we need to start acting well before we run out or the world doesn't need this commodity. And what is the future? The future is renewables. And it's not good not just for the environment, but it's good also for the economy. Because today you can produce electricity from renewable sources in Saudi Arabia below 20 euros per megawatt hour, $20 per megawatt hour. If you consider that the prices in Europe have been as high as 100 recently, or 70 or 100, you can see the advantage that you will have here. The other thing that Saudi Arabia is doing in that field is through a program of the Ministry of Energy, the Oil Sustainability Program. And that is very interesting in saying rather than using the oil to burn it, which is a very, if you want, primitive way to use such a wealth, why don't we use it to make something else that can contribute to the energy transition? For instance, we use membranes that are produced out of plastics, which in turn are made out of oil, to create one of the sustainable and circular solution for wastewater treatment at the Red Sea global venues, on the Red Sea. Yeah. So what we do is we take all the wastewater from the hotels, from the accommodation of the staff, and it goes through these membranes, it sediments the nutrients that is included in the wastewater, and we create forest of mangrove. And the residual water goes to the nursery that will produce 30 million trees and bushes for the landscaping of the more than 80 resorts that Red Sea Global is developing in the area and in the region. I find that fascinating.
And it's beautiful. I've been to that side of the country. It's really beautiful. I want to talk more broadly about the clean energy transition. How is Aqua Power contributing to that within Saudi Arabia, but more regionally, globally? I mean, yes. You're not just doing this yes. in Saudi Arabia. This is globally, isn't yes. it? You are having an impact. Yes. And then beyond that, how is PIF having an impact on yes. the clean energy transition?
So let me start from Saudi Arabia. Yeah. In Saudi Arabia, of course, we're developing renewables and gas-fired generation that has an emission per megawatt hour produced that is lower than the existing plants. So that's a first way to contribute. The second is we are replacing all the desalination plants that used oil to produce the electricity, to produce the water, the potable water. We're replacing those with reverse osmosis. For instance, in our Shuaibah plant on the coast of the Red Sea, that is going to reduce the emission by 9 million tons of CO2. We are also continuing to work to improve the efficiency of our plants. So what is called the heat rate, how much gas or fuel you need to create in a thermal plant the electricity or the water. So we continue to lower that. And the specific consumption for the reverse osmosis plant in desalination. To give you an example, over the past 15 years, we reduced the specific consumption by 80%. So all this is taking emissions out.
Let's talk about water desalination, because you've touched on it, but we haven't really discussed it. What does Aqua Power do differently when it comes to desalination?
Ingenuity. So these are all tenders. So you're competing with others. And what we do is we find always way to do the design of the plant better than the others, while maintaining reliability and while maintaining the quality of the water that you need to produce. We use, for instance, today artificial intelligence to look at chemicals that you need to put in the treatment system so that the water becomes potable, because it's not just that you take out the salt. You also have to put in certain other ingredients that are in normal potable water so that it's exactly the same quality that you would get from, say, spring water, for instance, or a well. And so basically through this, we minimize the use of electricity and minimize the use of all these additives that we need to combine basically to ensure the quality of the water. So the design, the operation, we have one of the best operating companies in the world. It's called NOMAC, 100% owned by Aqua Power. By the way, also serves third parties now. They come and they say, we see that you're so good, please come and serve also our plants.
Well, that was my next question. I mean, can people in the region learn from what Saudi Arabia is doing?
Yes, I think that the point is once you build a plant, everybody can copy that. No, there is no patent. Oh. So what we need to do is we need to continue to research and to stay one step ahead of the others. That's why we have increased the investment that we make in research and development. By the way, that's another part of the ecosystem. So we scout the best suppliers and research centers. They can be in Saudi Arabia or outside. If they're outside, we bring them and we select pilots for cooperation with universities like KAUST or KAXT, so that we pilot here with the working conditions that we have here.
Is PIF part of that enablement? Because it really is about enabling the private sector, building these ecosystems, and that sounds like the perfect example of what PIF is doing, a living and breathing example.
Absolutely. Simply by the number of companies that they own, to be able to access quickly in the ecosystem companies that you can work with, or companies with ideas that you can give to them or take from them, it's certainly something that is fantastic.
Going back to Vision 2030, that moment you said when you read it and you thought, this is brilliant, I want to be part of this. Do you think that what we're seeing being created here are blueprints for the future? And that's what this legacy is going to be. And if you think that is the case, how do you feel being part of that legacy?
I feel great, honestly. I feel very proud.
Marco, I get your excitement and I understand just the vastness of what's being done. My question really is, what challenges need to be overcome? Because there must be some challenges.
We get no sleep. And actually that's started as a joke, but it soon became a focus area for the leadership team to say, how can we work at this speed, at this scale, without burning people out? And that's a big focus of the company today. I think it's a big focus around us in Saudi Arabia because of all the project and all the speed and everything. And that's why we put so much effort in developing people, attracting people so that we can expand the base, and then simplifying and streamlining our business model so that we can focus only on what's really important. And we see the attrition level are lower. We see that people feel better. So I think that we are achieving that. But I tell you that the type of people that we attract here are people who are so attracted by the excitement of the speed and the scale that we have.
And it really does speak, doesn't it, to the vastness of what PIF is doing across the entire country. But then again, that ripple effect, that it is having a global impact.
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, some of the training programs and development we do jointly. So we exchange people, our people go to the PIF program. And now we're starting to invite PIF people to our programs. And I think the other thing is that there's always a reflection on the speed of everything. So I think that what I like, and it's not just about Aqua Power, but in general, Vision 2030, is that you need to be fast and decisive to prove that the change is there and to attract the people who will be attracted by this change. But at the same time, you cannot go too fast because then it becomes something that people will not appreciate.
And it's soon, isn't it, the target? 2030 is just down the road.
Exactly, but that's, I think, one of the secrets of the recipe, because if you say 2040, 2050, 2060, it's too late, and people cannot project themselves. 2030 is tomorrow, and you see these improvements in all the metrics that were set up year by year. They can be measured, you see the advancement, and then people believe it, get engaged, get excited, and they want to do more.
Talking about that excitement, are there any technologies or renewable sources that really excite you at the moment? I know you've spoken a lot about green hydrogen, but you personally, is there anything that excites you? You've been in the industry 30 years now.
Yeah. I'm one of the few people who manage all the technologies. So when I was in Europe and in the United States in my career, I managed oil and gas, nuclear plants, coal plants, gas plants, biomass, solar, wind, large hydro, small hydro, pump storage, everything. Enough to say that all technologies are needed in a transition, particularly. So you shouldn't hurry to say, I'm going to replace everything with one. First, you're putting all your eggs into one basket, and who knows, maybe there's another technology coming up. And then there's a load that you need to balance all the time. Some technologies are better during the day, during the night, or in different seasons of the year. So you want a balanced mix, and I think that this is what countries are putting in place, and then they need also to reflect the local conditions. But I think that today, certainly, renewables are cheap, sustainable, reliable, and the other thing that people don't reflect, they're fast. So what I continue to say, it's not an energy trilemma, it's a quadrilemma, because you need to add speed to the change, because otherwise, if we continue to postpone the solution of the problem, then it becomes too late. Renewables today are the fastest energy that you can install, the cheapest, the greenest, and reliable because they're secure, because there's no fuel chain for you. And with battery storage or other type of storage, you can make them available 24 hours a day, like concentrating solar power and so on. This is in power generation. In desalination, we're testing a new technology, hydraulic injection, that potentially can be the next leapfrog advancement in bringing down the specific consumption, that is basically how much energy you need to spend to desalinate the water.
I just want to end with, are you optimistic? Can this happen? Can we hit all the targets?
It's happening. So it's not that I'm optimistic, I see it. You know, since I arrived, Aqua Power was about 45 gigawatt of capacity, we're 65. So in 18 months, we added 20 gigawatt. So it is happening.
Marco, thank you so much for sitting down with us. It's been an absolute pleasure. And wherever you're listening from, watching from, thank you so much. And we'll see you for the next episode.